So your name is a brand, for good or bad. So what's the first thought that enters people's minds when they hear your name? Whatever it is, that's your brand. I mean, when you hear your name, what's the immediate thought? Where the consensus of that thought among the people is your brand. Proverbs 22:1 tells us, it says, a good name is better to be desired than riches. And they have it on the Life Vision screen, and love and favor rather than silver and gold. A good name. One of the heroes of World War II was a guy named Butch O'Hare. He was a fighter pilot assigned to an aircraft carrier in the South Pacific. One day his entire squadron was sent on a mission, and after he was airborne, he looked at his fuel gauge and realized that someone had forgotten to top off the fuel tank. He would not have enough fuel to complete his mission and get back to the ship. So his flight leader told him to return to the carrier. Reluctantly, he dropped out of formation and he headed back to the fleet. As he was returning, he saw a squadron of enemy fighters speeding toward the American fleet. And since all the American fighters were gone, the fleet was all but defenseless. He couldn't reach his squadron in time and bring them back to save the fleet. Nor could he warn the fleet of the approaching danger. There was only one thing to do. He must somehow divert the enemy from the fleet. So, laying aside all thoughts of personal safety, he dove into the oncoming flight of enemy fighters. He started shooting, and he shot down a lot of them. Then he thought that those that he couldn't shoot down, after he ran out of ammunition, he would clip their wings and just disable as many as he could. Well, before his plane got too much in disrepair, the enemy decided to turn around, and they went back in the direction that they came from. And Butch O'Hare saved the fleet. He came back, his plane tattered and barely making it. He told his superiors and his team what had happened, and then to verify it, the camera on his wing of his plane showed also what had happened. Today, O'Hare Airport in Chicago is named in tribute of him. When people, particularly those in Chicago who are familiar with this story, think of O'Hare Airport, they think of a hero. They think of a fighter pilot who risked his life for the safety of his companions. Back in the 1920s, there lived a man named Easy Eddie. At that time, Al Capone virtually owned the city of Chicago. Capone wasn't famous for anything heroic. He did nothing that was praiseworthy. He was notorious for bootleg liquor, prostitution, gambling, and killing. Easy Eddie was Al Capone's lawyer, and for good reason. He was very good. His skill at legal maneuvering kept Al Capone out of jail numerous times when it was obvious that he was wrong. Easy Eddie's ability in the courtroom kept Al Capone out of jail. So to show his appreciation, Al Capone paid him very well. Not only was the money big, but Eddie also got special dividends. He was chauffeured around in a limousine. He had maid service and exquisite golf club and yacht club and so many special dividends. But Eddie did have a soft spot. He had a son that he loved very, very dearly. Eddie saw to it that his son had the best education, that he wore the best clothes, that he had everything that he ever wanted. Yet with all his wealth and influence, there were two things Eddie couldn't give his son. He couldn't give his son a good example and a good name. One day, Eddie reached a difficult decision. Offering his son a good name was far more important to him than all the riches that Al Capone could give him. So he felt that he had to rectify all the wrong that he had done because he wanted his son to have a good name and to give his son a good example. You know, it is said that young men love their mothers, but they follow their fathers. And so he would go to the authorities and just divulge all of Al Capone's wrongdoing. And of course, this got him in trouble. This brought about his death because Al Capone, of course, retaliated and got hitmen to kill him. And so he was killed in a hail of gunfire from Al Capone's hitmen for turning on Al Capone. Eddie, knowing that this would happen, but he wanted so dearly to leave his son a good example and a good name. Oh, and by the way, Easy Eddie's son was named Butch O'Hare. Butch O'Hare, the one that we talked about at first. So he succeeded in giving him a good example and leaving him a good name. Not only does your individual name have a brand, but your family name has a brand. What do people think of initially when they think of your family name? What do they think of initially when they think of the Vanns, the Williamses, the Giddens, the Blands, the Connies, or the Banks? What do they think of initially? Whatever, again, the consensus of people think initially when they hear our name, that's our brand.